This is crispy. Moving on to New Moon. I'm excited because we get a lot more Jacob content. Yeah, I'm really excited about this, as I was the last one as well. You know what? Just assume that if I'm gonna start reading a book that I'm excited. It's the little things, you know? If you have watched my Twilight video, thank you. If you have not, I don't recommend watching it because the noise quality is horrible. Noise quality. Just kidding, you should watch it. I mean, if you're interested. It's my first ever video that I ever am putting up here, so maybe watch it. Let's get into it. Let's read. That's my motto in life. I'm excited. The very first chapter of this book starts off with Bella saying she thinks it's a dream. Of course, we have to kick off the book with Bella thinking that she is dreaming. This time it's real. This time she is actually dreaming. She has a dream that she's an old lady and Edward is Edward. And she wakes up and it's her birthday. There's a lot of Bella complaining about the fact that she's turning 18 and Edward is still and forever will be 17. Now she's older than him. That's her whole thing. I'm older than you now. Technically not. Technically he's way older than you. But Bella doesn't want anybody to know that it's her birthday, so she's very hush-hush about it. Alice wants to throw a party. She does throw a party. Bella, trying to get out of it, is like, oh well, I have to go home and watch Romeo and Juliet. So Edward goes with her. The movie makes her cry, and Edward dries her tears with a lock of her hair. How are you drying tears with hair? Why are you drying tears with hair? I mean, at least he's not tasting it again. Bella and Edward start talking about what happened to her with James. Edward says, last spring when you were nearly killed, of course I was trying to focus on finding you alive, but part of my mind was making contingency plans. I'm talking about offing himself. Why are we so dramatic with it? Both of them are like, if I'm without you, I will die. You won't. You'll be fine. Moments like that is like, oh, they're mates. But then I'm still like, geez, like, calm down. Bella ends up going to the Cullens' house where Alice had set up a very nice party. Everyone got her presents. It was very cute. And then Bella gets a paper cut. Jasper freaks out. Edward throws Bella back. Bella flies like across the table, I guess. So she falls down into the broken glass, which cut up her arms. Or her arm? She gets cut up. I'm confused by this. Like, this feels like a cop-out. Jasper was a part of the rescue party that rescued Bella from James, and she was a bloody mess when they found her, but she gets a paper cut and it's game over. And I'm sure, because they had planned this party for her, so I'm sure that they had gone and taken care of their thirst. That caused some issues. Because that happened, suddenly Edward started becoming very cold. He would ignore her or just like not talk to her, and Bella is spiraling. She's spiraling. She's like, I don't know why he's acting like this. Maybe, you know, he's blaming himself and he really doesn't need to be. Like, they don't talk about it at all. They're just doing their own things. So Monday at school, Alice wasn't at school, and Bella's like, where's Alice? And Edward's like, Alice and Jasper went to Denali because Jasper needed to get away. And she was like, to herself, she's like, yeah, I guess that makes sense. But anyway, I think on Wednesday, Bella's finally over it. She's like, we just need to talk about this because, like, she's kind of over the whole being ignored thing. She's spiraling. They need to talk about it. They need to figure out what's going to happen, what's going on, like, all of that. So she decides that she's finally going to say something to Edward, and they're going to talk. And before she can even say something, Edward's like, hey, can I come over? Let's talk. And she's like, absolutely. He comes over and he says, let's go for a walk. And he leads her like a few feet into the woods by her house, and he tells her that they're leaving. And at first, she's like, okay, not a problem. I can work this out. Edward says, no, me and my family are leaving. Bella's like, I don't understand. Edward tells her he doesn't want her. He wants to break up with her. He wants to just never be in her life again. He's a complete dick about it, to be quite honest. Edward says, don't worry, you're human. Your memory is no more than a sieve. Time heals all wounds for your kind. Okay, jerk. Bella says, in your memories? And he says, well, I won't forget, but my kind were very easily distracted. He asks her not to do anything stupid or reckless, for Charlie's sake, not for his. Apparently, at this moment, he cares more about Charlie than he does about Bella. Rude. He leaves, and Bella tries to go after him. Apparently, her mind wasn't working at this time because Edward drove his car to her house. It's mentioned when she gets to her house, he had parked his car where Charlie usually parks his cruiser. So she was like, oh, he doesn't plan on staying very long. She started chasing him further into the forest instead of turning around and trying to get to his car. I digress. So she goes deeper and deeper into the forest until she like falls, and then she just lays there. She's there for hours. People start looking for her, and Sam Yulee, who is one of the guys from La Push, he finds her. The dramatics weren't like over the top with this. I feel like it was written really well. Even though Bella does tend to be dramatic at times, she's not being too dramatic in this situation because she is experiencing heartbreak. I feel bad for her because of the way it was done. I think that this is good for her. She doesn't need Edward. Edward is not... I think that he's the wrong guy for her. And I realized that from the start of Twilight till the end of Twilight, Edward does not give Bella a choice in much of anything. He controls the entire relationship from the beginning. He's just so controlling. He's very controlling. She doesn't need that. She needs an equal. And he's not being equal. He's being a dick. I was thinking about this book all day today while I was at work. I love Jacob. Nobody gives a fuck about Bella, apparently. About Bella being depressed. For 4 months, she was just going through life on autopilot, and nobody said anything to her. Nobody cares, apparently. Charlie, though, is finally saying something after 4 months. He's finally like, he's fed up. He's like, Bella, stop it. Like, that's enough. I'm over it. In order to appease Charlie, Bella's like, I'll call Jessica, like, I'll go hang out with Jessica. And when Bella starts talking to Jessica, Jessica's like being kind of rude. But Bella and Jessica go to Port Angeles to watch a movie. And Bella picks like a zombie movie because she can't handle anything like romantic. She has some issues getting back into like social life because like for 4 months she's just been going on autopilot. It pisses Jessica off. Great friend. After the movie they head to McDonald's and Bella sees some guys leaning on the wall of a bar. One of the guys that are leaning against the wall kind of looks like one of the guys that harassed her. So Bella starts walking towards them for some reason. And as she's walking towards them, she suddenly hears Edward's voice. That brings on a whole round of emotions. Jessica, during this, gets super pissed off at her, yells at her, and then doesn't talk to her for the rest of the night. Bella tries really hard not to like be alone or like spend any kind of time by herself, like in the house, like wallowing. So she was going for a drive and then she had like kind of a panicky moment, so she had to pull over, and she gets out of the car to get some fresh air and she sees a couple of motorcycles on the side of the road that are for sale, and so she's like, you know what, YOLO. So she goes up to the house and she asks about them, and he's like, just take them, like they don't work. So she takes them, and he's asked, like this kid's asking her like, you know, how are you gonna get them fixed? And she's like, oh, I'll just take them to this one place. And he's like, don't, that guy charges so much money to fix things, like I wouldn't take it to him. And then she remembers Jacob was building a car, and she was like, Jacob, and she's like, I've got a mechanic. This is when Jacob comes back into the picture. It's so exciting. He's 16 now, 6'5", and more than happy to secretly work on these motorcycles for Bella. I love Jacob. He's so good for Bella. He kind of helped her to like become herself again, kind of, and she's actually talking to her little friend group at school again, which shocked everybody. They were talking about black bears, and she like stood up for Angela because everybody was mocking her. And Bella's like, no, really, that's a thing, I heard about it. Jacob and Bella are spending a lot of time together. Like every moment that they can possibly spend together, they're spending together. It's really cute. First of all, the only reason why she picked up these motorcycles was because she felt that Edward had broken his promise. I don't remember exactly what promise that was. Oh, I think it's the leaving her. Edward's promise was that it was going to be like he never existed, but then she had the hallucination and she was like, as if you never existed? Sure, okay. But anyway, she thinks, why should she hold her side of the promise when he broke his side? So, because she had promised him that she would not be reckless and stupid and like get into trouble or whatever. And so she's like, motorcycles equals trouble, so I'm gonna break that promise. So that's like the whole point why she wants the motorcycles and why she wants to ride it. So she's kind of using Jacob in that way, but Jacob isn't stupid. He's a smart boy. We asked Bella like what she would have done if he told her that he couldn't fix the motorcycles. And at this point now, she like has more of a deeper bond and a deeper feelings for Jacob. So she's like, I would have said, oh well, like let's just find something else to do. But Jacob does fix the motorcycles, and Bella and Jacob decide to take them out. And as they're driving to like a secluded area for them to drive the motorcycles, Bella sees people jumping off of a cliff. And she freaks out. She pulls over and she gets out of the car. She's like, oh my god. And Jacob like laughs and he's like, chill out. Like, it's just Sam and his buddies. They're doing it for fun. They're cliff diving. Which leads into a conversation about Sam and his disciples, or followers. Jacob is like freaked out about Sam and his disciples or his followers. And he's also freaked out about how Sam looks at him, because Sam looks at him like Jacob's gonna join him soon or something. Back when Bella first started hanging out with Jacob, Bella met Jacob's friends Quill and Embry, and Jacob mentions at this time that Embry doesn't even talk to him or Quill anymore, and he now follows Sam around, and it's like really weird. It's freaking him out. I find it kind of weird though that they don't like in this tribe, you know, like Jacob's dad Billy, I find it kind of weird that Billy wasn't like, oh hey Jacob, by the way, this is probably gonna happen to you or something. I mean, these boys are literally freaking out. They're scared because of Sam and like what's going on and how they're like talking and how they're looking at them, and it's like freaking them out. They're literally scared, but nobody even says anything to them, like these poor boys. So then they go to ride the motorcycles. Bella's learning how to work the motorcycle. And as she's getting ready to go, she hears Edward's voice again. And this excites her. She gets very excited. So she ends up like going too fast on the motorcycle toward like a turn, but she never learned how to turn. So she ends up crashing the motorcycle and she gets hurt really bad. And she ends up having to actually go to the emergency room and get stitches in her forehead. But they continue with the motorcycles because, of course, Edward's voice, she doesn't want to let that go. But Bella keeps getting hurt, and Charlie is Charlie is no longer buying the fact that she fell in Jacob's garage. He's like, what is going on? So she tells Jacob, and then Jacob's like, oh, maybe we should take a break from the bikes for like a week. She freaks out at first, and he's like, but it's just like a week. And she's like, okay, fine. And he's like, so what are we gonna do now? And Bella brings up hiking because she thinks of the meadow, because she has to have some way of hearing Edward's voice. So she's like, what about we start hiking? Because there's like this meadow that I found once before and it's beautiful and I kind of want to see it again. And he's like, bet. I'm here for it. Let's go. I really wish she would just let it go. I wish she would just focus on Jacob because their relationship is really cute and really good for both of them, honestly. They're just so cute. Charlie tells Bella that he's gonna go fishing. In this inner dialogue part, she says if he hadn't been eager to hit the holes. Isn't that like golf? Hitting the holes? That's not fishing. So Jacob, Bella, and Mike end up going to a movie together. There were other people invited, but they all either said no, bailed, or got sick. So it ends up just being those three. But they are watching a gory action movie, and Mike, in the middle of it, gets sick. And it's not because of the movie, it's just he ends up having the sickness that some of the people that were like, we can't go, we're sick, has the stomach flu. He has the stomach flu. But while Mike is in the bathroom, Bella and Jacob have like a moment, which is a very important moment. Bella explains that she likes him more than anyone else. He's her favorite person. But she can't be more than a friend to him. And Jacob is like, fine by me. And he's like holding her hand and she keeps trying to pull away and he's like, why do you keep trying? And she's like, because I don't want you to think that this is more than what it is because I can't give that to you. And he's like, it's no problem. No problem at all. He's like, that's my feelings are my responsibility, not yours. Period. He tells her that he's there for her. He makes a promise that he'll never hurt her. They take Mike home and then suddenly Jacob starts to not feel well and he ends up going home. And then after that, I think like maybe the next day or the day after, Bella talks to Jacob on the phone and he's like really sick still and he's like, my whole body hurts all over, like he's really sick, he's really sad, and Bella feels so bad for him. But then after that, she doesn't hear from him for like 2 weeks or more. Like he's just avoiding her. And every time she calls, Billy will be like, oh, he's not home, he's out with his friends. I'll let him know you called. Bella's like suspicious about it. She doesn't know why he's acting like this or what's going on, and she's like, she can't have it. Like she can't. Jacob became her best friend and she loves him. He can't just leave her. She needs him. So the weekend comes and Bella is like, I think it's like Saturday, and Bella's like, ain't no way I'm sitting in this house all by myself again to just sit here and think about Edward and all that I've lost. So she decides to just go try to find the meadow by herself because her and Jacob were trying to find it together. They had a few failed attempts. So she has like the compass and the map that they were using in her truck, and she's like, you know what, fuck it, I'm going by myself. I'm just gonna go try to find this meadow. She needs something to distract her. So she finds it and like almost instantly regrets it because she realizes that all she has and all she ever really will have are just the memories of him and like of their relationship. And she doesn't hear his voice. So she goes to leave when guess who shows up? Laurent. I don't know if I mentioned Laurent in the Twilight video, but the 3 vamps that showed up when they were playing baseball were Laurent, Victoria, and James. And Laurent decided not to be a part of James's little hunting party, and he ended up actually going to Denali where like some other like vegan vampires live. So when Bella sees him at first, she's actually relieved. But then she sees his eyes and they're red and she realizes that he's no vegan. So Laurent tells her that he's hunting her down for Victoria, and he didn't realize it was going to be so easy. She was just going to be there while he's actually hunting for food. So he's like saying like, I was like trying to find some dinner and here you are. So I think I'll just have you. And while he's talking to her, he actually mentions, he says that Victoria's sort of put out with you. And Bella's like, me? And he's like, I know it seems a little backward to me too, but James was her mate and your Edward killed him. Whoa! That's the first time that word came up, because remember in Twilight I was saying Edward and Bella are mates. And now Laurent's just throwing that word out there, so... And he even says mate for a mate. I wonder how they knew that Bella was Edward's mate. Bella realizes that she really has no chance in surviving this because she no longer has anybody there to protect her, and she can't run from a vampire, so she just kind of like, it's like, here it is. Which, during this whole conversation, Edward's voice is actually there telling her what to do. He's like telling her to lie and telling her to like threaten him and all this other stuff. Suddenly, the big black bear that everybody keeps saying shows up, but it's not actually a black bear, it's a wolf. And Bella's like, whoa, that is the biggest wolf I've ever seen in my life. I didn't think that they came that big. They don't, it's a werewolf. But Bella is confused because the wolf isn't even paying attention to her. It's looking only at Laurent, and Laurent is terrified. Bella's like, what's happening? Come on, Bella. Seriously? That should have been a tip-off right there, that was a werewolf. Jacob told you. Bella gets home. She tells Charlie that the black bear is not a black bear, it's actually a wolf. And Charlie's like, a wolf? That makes sense. Because there's hikers going missing, so he's like, yeah, that makes sense. And there's also like animal prints. Bella is finally, she's fed up with Jacob ignoring her, so she decides to go to Jacob's house, and she has like this epiphany that Sam Yulee must be behind Jacob's actions, and he must have gotten to Edward. I mean, he must have gotten to Jacob. So she goes to Jacob's house, and when she sees Jacob, he's with Sam, and so she's like, yep, it's confirmed. That's exactly what happened. He is now a part of Sam's cult. And Jacob like breaks up with her. And obviously that hurts. That hurt that he would even do that to her, because like everything was great, and now all of a sudden he's like, bye Bella. So Bella goes home and cries herself to sleep. And then she wakes up to Jacob at her window, and he comes in and she's like, get the fuck out, like I want nothing to do with you. And he's apologizing to her, and she's like, I don't care, like I don't want your apologies. And he's like, that's fair. And they go into a conversation about Sam, and he's like, you know, Sam and the guys, they're actually really great, like there's nothing, I misunderstood. And then he starts trying to get, because he tells her that it's like a secret he can't tell her. And he obviously knows about Edward and the rest of the Cullens and the fact that there are vampires in the world. And he's like, haven't you ever had a secret that you just couldn't tell? And Bella's like, how does he know about Edward? How does he know? But she doesn't say anything. And he's like, exactly, like that's my point, like I can't talk about it. And he's like, but maybe I can get around it if you guess it instead of me telling you. And she's like, how am I supposed to guess this? And then he tells her, I've told you before, you know this, I told you, you just have to remember it. Jacob is like, well, maybe if I like give you a hint. So he's like, remember when we first met at La Push Beach? And she was like, yeah. And he's like, and she's like, I mean, we talked about the car that you're building, and then you told me the scary stories. And he was like, right. He's like, do you remember the stories? And she's like, I don't. She said, like, you told me the stories about the cold ones. And he was like, yeah, and there was more, like, do you remember? And she's like, I don't remember. And he's like, of course you only remember about the cold ones. But he pleads with her to remember. He's like, please remember, and if you do, call me and tell me whether you want to hang out with me or you don't want to hang out with me. And he's like, I'm gonna try to keep seeing you. Then Bella goes to sleep, and she has the same dream that she had in Twilight, where she saw Jacob turn into a werewolf. She wakes up with the realization that Jacob is a werewolf, and she handles it very different than she did learning that Edward is a vampire. Like, she was all cool, calm, collected, and nonchalant about the fact that Edward was a vampire. But then she finds out that Jacob is actually a werewolf, and she literally freaks out, and she's like, I have to go see him. I have to, there's no way, like there's no way. I need to go see him and he needs to confirm this because what? So when she's going to leave, she actually runs into Charlie, and Charlie mentions that another hiker had gone missing. There was more animal prints, and Bella immediately connects this to the wolves, which to me is absolutely mind-blowing because she knows that Victoria, and she also thinks that Laurent is still out there. She doesn't think that the wolves would have killed him. Why is it not her first thought that these hikers could have gone missing because of the vampires? When she found out that Edward was a vampire, she didn't even question what he ate. Edward actually had to mention it himself, like, aren't you curious about what we eat? But some missing hikers plus Sam and friends and Jacob being werewolves equals werewolves are killers. It's called fashion. Jacob keeps calling Bella honey, and I'm really here for it. Bella and Jacob have a little conversation, and she's like, you're killers. Like, I can't be down with that. And he's like, no, we're not. He's like, that's the vampires. This freaks Bella out because it's gotta be Victoria. Apparently, Bella just forgot about Victoria and Laurent there for a second. After this conversation, everything's great between them again. Bella starts spending a lot more time at Jacob's house, so she's safe. Jacob spends a lot of time obviously out hunting Victoria, trying to figure out like what's going on there. So Bella spends a lot of time alone. She's honestly starting to get a little stir crazy. She's sitting there with her thoughts, and now she's starting to like panic about things. And Jacob comes to see her one day, and he's like, I'm so sorry that like you're sitting here all alone all the time. He's like, I feel bad. He's like, tell you what, we'll go cliff diving, tomorrow. And she's like, great, perfect. Tomorrow comes, and Victoria decides to make an appearance. So Jacob is not available, but Bella keeps getting panicky, and she's like, fuck it, I'm going cliff diving by myself. And then of course when she's on the cliff, she hears Edward's voice again telling her not to do it, but she does it anyway. While she's going up to the cliff, like there's this storm brewing, and it's like really starting to get serious as she's up there. She doesn't think about this though. She doesn't think about the fact that the water, even though in her like inner monologue she like describes how the water is like crashing against crashing against the rocks. She ignores that. Who cares? She's gonna cliff dive anyway. So Bella jumps, and because of the storm, the water is really bad, and so it's like pushing her around all over the place. She's not even able to come out like to break the surface. She's just stuck under the water, and at first she's like really trying to like save herself, but then it gets to a point, she actually sees Edward, and it gets to a point where she's just like, why am I trying so hard? Like, I've got really nothing to live for. It's kind of dark. So Bella blacks out. The next thing she knows, Jacob has saved her, and he's like hitting her back trying to get the water out of her, and he's like, what the hell? What's wrong with you? Why didn't you wait for me? She's like, yeah, I probably should have, sorry. But Jacob brings her back to his place. He explains to her that a friend of Billy's and Charlie's, his name's Harry, had a heart attack that morning. And Bella immediately feels really guilty that she chose that moment to almost die. Jacob's about to head back out, and Bella's like, no, like, don't leave me. So he doesn't. He stays, and they end up falling asleep. And they wake up when Billy gets home, and he tells them that Harry didn't make it. Jacob offers to take Bella home so that she's there for Charlie. And when they get to her place, they're sitting in her truck, and they have like a moment. And it's like, Bella's sitting here thinking like, I could do this. Like, I could be in a relationship with Jacob. It wouldn't be so bad. I mean, it's not going to be, you know, Edward. It's never going to feel like I feel with Edward. But the way I feel with Jacob is great. Like, I love him. He's my comfort. Like, he's helped me through so much, and he's a really great friend, and he really cares about me. And like, I think I could do this. They were getting all cozy in the truck, and then suddenly Bella hears Edward's voice telling her to be happy, and this makes her like jump. Jacob perceives it as her like not being comfortable with them getting all close and cozy, and so he's like, okay, so he like splits them apart. I'm like, damn it. No, they were so close. Jacob then opens the car door and immediately shuts it, and he's like oh, and he like immediately shuts it. And Bella's like, what's wrong? And he's like, vampire. He could smell a vampire. And so he starts like gunning it down the street, and Bella notices a car. I'm gonna read exactly what this says. It was a black car, a car I knew. I might be the furthest thing from an autophile, but I could tell you everything about that particular car. It was a Mercedes S55 AMG. I knew the horsepower and the color of the interior. I knew the feel of the powerful engine purring through the frame. I knew the rich smell of the leather seats and the way the extra dark tint made noon look like dusk through those windows. It was Carlisle's car. This is the first time I've ever heard anything about Carlisle's car. How does she know it so well? But Bella tells Jacob to stop. She's like, that's Carlisle's car. And he's like, so? She's like, no, like, take me back right now. And he's like, sorry, Bella, you're on your own, kid. He dips. She ends up going back to the house by herself. She opens the door. It's pitch dark in her house. And then suddenly at this moment, she remembers, she's like going to turn on the light, but then at this moment she remembers that when Jacob was carrying her away from the ocean, she saw a flash of red, like on the water, and at first she was like, why is there fire on the water? Daft. And then at this moment when she's in the house going to turn on the light so that she can see who's in her house, she's like, oh, that wasn't fire, that was Victoria. And then the light turns on, and then it's Alice at her house. Bella is immediately sobbing. She's ecstatic that Alice is there, and she begs Alice to stay. But the reason why Alice is there is because Alice can't see werewolves, like when she sees the future. So she saw Bella jump off a cliff and then didn't see her get rescued because she can't see werewolves. So she thought that Bella had died. So she apparently decided it was a good idea to come and visit Charlie for like emotional support or something. I don't really know her reasoning, especially considering Bella jumped off the cliff that same day. So even if she was there to see Charlie, like let's say it did happen, Bella really did pass, and Alice came to be like emotional support for Charlie, Charlie would have been so confused. He would have been like, how did you even know? It literally just happened. Alice isn't staying. Alice is she's just staying for like a night or two just to like appease Bella, but she's gonna leave again. Jacob comes to the house and he's all tense because Alice is there, and she's like, don't worry, she's not here right now, like what do you want? And I have to say that Jacob at this moment is being kind of an ass because of the whole like vampire thing. Like I understand that like they're enemies, vampires and werewolves, but you really don't have to be a dick to Bella about it. Like Bella already had built a bond and a relationship with Edward and Alice and Emmett and Carlisle. Like she knew them, she built a relationship with them, she has a bond with them. Like of course she's gonna have feelings for them, she loves them. But Jacob keeps making little snide little comments, and it's like, bro, like back the fuck off. Like it's okay for him to not like them, and if he feels like he can't be around Bella while they're around, sure. Damn, he doesn't have to be so mean. Bella starts crying. He apologizes and he's like, I broke my promise again, I'm so sorry. They are hugging, and He's like, I'm gonna miss you until like I get to see you again, which is when Alice leaves. They're just like holding each other, and then this is it. Like Jacob, his whole demeanor changes, and he's like going to kiss her. He is going to kiss her. And Bella, in her mind, she's thinking, no, I haven't made this decision yet. I didn't know if I could do this, and now I was out of time to think. Yes, she did! She made the decision in the truck. Before Edward so rudely interrupted, well, Edward's voice so rudely interrupted them, she had made the decision. They were gonna have a moment then, but they're about to kiss. And then the phone rings. Jacob's demeanor changes again. And he says, no, he's not here. And then he says, he's at the funeral. And then he hangs up the phone. And Bella's like, what the fuck? First of all, who was that? Second of all, why'd you hang up on them? Jacob's like, chill, I didn't hang up on them. They hung up on me. And he was like, it was Carlisle. He wanted to know where Charlie was. Alice comes into the house. She's scared. And Bella's like, what's wrong? What's going on? Turns out that it wasn't Carlisle on the phone. It was actually Edward. And without the context, apparently Rosalie had told Edward what Alice saw. Bella jumping off the cliff. And then nothing. So Edward called Bella's house, and with Jacob saying that Charlie was at the funeral, you know, connect the dots, that was it. So Alice sees the future and sees in the future that Edward is going to go to Italy to provoke the Volturi so that he can die. So Bella leaves with Alice. Jake tries so hard to get her to stay, but it's Edward. Bella's not gonna not save Edward. So Bella leaves with Alice. They go to Italy, and it's this race against the clock to save Edward. And he plans to provoke the Volturi by exposing vampires, pretty much, to the city that they live in, which is Volterra. So at noon, Edward plans to go out into the sun. Bella does get to him. She gets him to get out of the sun. Two people show up. I believe it was Dimitri and Felix were the names of the guys that show up. But they're like, let's go have a little chat with Arrow. And Edward's like, nah, I'm good. Like, I'm just gonna go home now. And they're like, that's not a choice. He's like, okay, fine, but Bella's gonna go enjoy the festival. And they're like, no, she's gonna come with us too. And then Alice comes in, and then Jane shows up, and they all go to meet with Arrow. Arrow he's very expressive. And he's like, look, see, Edward, Bella's alive. Like, it's great. Everything's great. And Edward's like, yeah, it's great. I want to go home. And Arrow, there's like this whole thing with like testing to see if his abilities work with Bella. They don't. And then he's like, I wonder if Jane's will. And Jane's ability is like debilitating pain, I guess, by just looking at somebody. Edward at first is like, no, gets in front of like gets in the way of her view of Bella, and he ends up getting hurt. And then she does it to Bella, but Bella doesn't. Nothing happens to Bella. And Arrow is very, very interested in this, and he asks Edward if he would stay. Edward says no. He asks Alice. Alice says no. And then he asks Bella. And Arrow's brother, Caius, and Marcus, it's a very normal name, were kind of shocked that Arrow was inviting Bella to stay. And Arrow was like, think of the potential of like what, when she becomes, like if she becomes a vampire, like what her her power would be like. And then Caius is like, she has to die because she knows her secrets, and they don't plan on changing her. Arrow is like, yeah, that is true, unless you plan on changing her. And Edward, Arrow is like, but you have to mean it. Like, you can't just say it. You have to actually truly mean it and prove it to me that you mean it. Alice walks up, which is Arrow, which Arrow's power is that when he touches somebody, he can like see all of their memories and all of their thoughts. It's like insane. And he's very pleased with what he sees, and he lets them go. So Bella, on their way back home, Bella is like refusing to go to sleep. She's exhausted, but she's refusing to go to sleep because she thinks that Edward's gonna leave her again, and she's just not ready for that pain again. She gets home, Charlie's pissed at everything. When she wakes up, as with Bella's style, she thinks that she dreamed everything that happened. And Edward's there, and she's like, oh God, like my delusions are greater than they've ever been before. And Edward's like, you're not dreaming, this isn't dreaming, this is real. And he has to convince her that he's never leaving her again, that he loves her very dearly, and that he wants to be with her forever. And she was like, yeah, well, I mean, you're gonna have to be with me forever because I'm gonna be changed into a vampire. And Edward's like, absolutely not. And Bella's like, but the Volturi are gonna come after me, and they're gonna kill everybody if I'm not a vampire. And he's like, we'll find some other way. And she's like, no, absolutely not. Like, this is happening. And she's like, you know what, I'm gonna put it to a vote. Like, I'm going to your house right now, and I'm putting it to a vote because this now affects not only you and I, but also your whole family. So they go to Edward's house. She tells them she wants to be a vampire and she wants to put it to a vote. And everybody but Rosalie says yes, and obviously Edward. Rosalie says no, and she says that it's because she wishes that somebody would have been there to vote no for her when she had turned. Which we don't know her turning story yet. So Bella stands up and she's like, alright Alice, where do you want to do this? Alice was like, yeah, Bella, I need to prepare for that. Like, I don't even think that I would be able to do that right now without killing you. And then Bella's like, well, that's fine, Carlisle, what about you? And he's like, I mean, I could do it. And Edward was like, no, this is not happening right now. Like, at least graduate high school first. And she's like, fine. And then he proposes to her. Edward proposes, and which is really funny. I'm gonna bring up the movie. I haven't brought up the movie in a while, but in the movie when Edward proposes to Bella, it's kind of like a big moment, and it's a really good, they kind of used it as a segue into Eclipse. But in the book, when Edward proposes to Bella, she's like, be serious, Edward. And he was like, you wound me. Like, I'm being serious. And she's like, I'm 18 and my parents didn't do very well with marriage, so I don't know if it's something that I like really want to do. And honestly, I get like her side of it, not the whole like Charlie and Renee having a rocky marriage, but why does marriage matter? Because he's a vampire. It's not, plus he's already told her before that he's never gonna have sex with her, so what's the point of getting married? You're already gonna be together forever. I don't see the point, but I think he's just trying to prolong the time because he doesn't want her to change right this moment. He wants her to At first he's like, you know, let's give it 5 years. And she's like, absolutely not. I'm not waiting 5 years. Because he's like, I mean, I'll do it, but you have to wait 5 years. And she's like, no. And he's like, okay, how about 3? And she's like, no. And he's like, okay, how about you marry me? And she was like, be serious. So now that's what's thrown out there. He will change her if she marries him. That's the one condition. So I'm kind of confused on if they're even like engaged. The way it was just so nonchalant and kind of just like, I don't know, like, are they engaged? Are they not engaged? I really truly have no idea. Because there's still like the option of Carlisle changing her after graduation. So, but then they run into Jacob, because Jacob decides to bring Bella's motorcycle to her house and tell Charlie that she has a motorcycle. And Bella is furious, and she's like, I'm gonna kill him. I'm gonna kill him myself. And they go to talk to him in the woods, and Edward tells her that he did it because he wanted her to be grounded so that she wouldn't be able to spend time with Edward. And Bella's like, are you crazy? I'm already grounded. I'm grounded so hard. I can't even go see you. That's the only reason why I haven't been down to La Push to confront you about not answering my phone calls. And he's like, oh, I didn't know that. Yeah, maybe if you answered her phone calls, you would know, you stupid child. And now it's really complicated and messy with like this triangle. And I really, really feel terrible for Jacob, because they had a thing going. Like, they built this great bond. Bella and Jacob built this bond, and they were happy and they were comfortable with each other, and they were like, they know each other so well, they're best friends. And then all that happened with Edward and Alice, and now her whole world is Edward again, and Jacob's just left in the dust. I feel so bad for him. Poor Jacob. This book was definitely better than Twilight, because I really liked getting to know Jacob, and I really liked that relationship forming. It was really nice to see. Also, I guess there was character building with Jacob, because he's in this book a lot more than he was in Twilight. So, and then we're introduced to the wolf pack, and there's all of that. So there's a lot of character building in this one too, and it's kind of exhausting. But it wasn't so, like, in Twilight I was kind of bored with like the first part of the book. In this one I wasn't bored. I wasn't bored at all. I was all for it. If you have opinions, leave them below. I would love to hear good or bad opinions. Thanks for watching. I'm so tired. I'm gonna go sleep.